There are moments in life that feel ordinary until you realize they were never ordinary at all. This is one of those moments. This is one of those divine intersections where time itself seems to pause, where something deep within your spirit begins to stir, where you feel it, not in your mind, but in your soul, that something is about to shift. And if you're here right now, reading these words, it's not random. It's not coincidence. It's not just another video, another message, another passing moment in your day. No. This is a divine interruption, a heavenly alert, a sacred whisper breaking through the noise of your life, saying, "Pay attention because your time has come." You've been carrying something heavy, haven't you? Not just bills, not just responsibilities, not just numbers in your bank account that never seem to stretch far enough. No, it's deeper than that. It's the silent pressure, the late nights wondering how things will work out, the quiet calculations in your mind, the sacrifices no one saw, the moments you smiled in public but wrestled in private, the times you said, "I'll figure it out," while your spirit whispered, "How much longer?" You've been in a season where it felt like no matter how hard you tried, something kept resisting you. Like every step forward came with 2 steps back. Like opportunities slipped through your fingers just when you thought you had them. Like doors closed without explanation. Like favor was for everyone else, but somehow skipped your name. And the hardest part, you stayed faithful anyway. You kept going when it didn't make sense. You kept believing when there was no evidence. You kept giving when you felt empty. You kept praying when heaven felt silent. You kept showing up when everything in you wanted to shut down. And now everything is about to change. Because June 25th is not just a date on a calendar. It is a divine marker. A spiritual turning point. A line drawn in the unseen realm where what was can no longer continue into what is about to be. There's a countdown happening right now, not on your phone, not on your clock, but in the spirit. Every delay you experienced, every closed door, every moment of lack, every tear, every sacrifice, it has all been leading to this exact moment. This exact shift. This exact release. And here's what makes this moment so powerful: you didn't even realize you were in a test. While you were stressing, heaven was measuring. While you were struggling, heaven was recording. While you were waiting, heaven was preparing something so precise, so intentional, so perfectly timed that when it arrives, you will understand why nothing else worked. Because it wasn't supposed to. What's coming cannot fit into your old patterns. What's being released cannot be contained by your past limitations. What God has prepared for you cannot be accessed by who you used to be. That's why it felt so hard. That's why it stretched you. That's why it broke parts of you you didn't even know needed breaking. Because this wasn't just about money, it was about transformation. And now, the countdown has reached its final moments. You may not see it yet, but something has already shifted. You may not feel it fully, but something has already been released. You may not understand it yet, but something has already been decided in your favor. This is the moment where the unseen begins to become seen. This is the moment where pressure turns into provision. This is the moment where survival gives way to overflow. But hear this clearly: the same way this season required your endurance, this next season will require your awareness. Because if you miss the shift, you might mistake it for coincidence. If you're distracted, you might overlook the opportunity. If you're not spiritually alert, you might delay what has already been released. So right now, in this very moment, something is asking for your attention. Not fear, not panic, not confusion. Alignment, stillness, awareness. Because the countdown has begun and June 25th is closer than you think. And when it arrives, nothing in your financial life will remain the same. Type "I am ready for overflow" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2525 is now activated. You need to hear this with clarity, not just with your ears, but with your spirit fully open, because what you have been through was never meant to destroy you. It was never meant to punish you. It was never a sign that you were forgotten, overlooked, or abandoned. What you called struggle, heaven called preparation. What you felt as pressure, heaven allowed as positioning. And what looked like delay was actually divine alignment moving beneath the surface, beyond what your natural eyes could see. For so long you questioned it, didn't you? You asked yourself why things felt harder for you than for others. Why money seemed to come and go without ever settling. Why every time you started to breathe, something unexpected demanded your attention again. Bills rising. Opportunities collapsing. Plans shifting. You wondered if you had done something wrong, if you had missed something, if somehow you were being tested because you failed somewhere along the way. But hear this truth now, and let it settle deep within you. This was never punishment. This was refinement. Because there are some levels of blessing that cannot be handed to the version of you that existed before this season. There are doors that will not open until your mindset is stretched, your discipline is sharpened, and your spirit is anchored in something deeper than temporary comfort. And that is exactly what this season was doing. It was stripping away everything that could not sustain where you are going. It was removing every dependency on unstable sources. It was forcing you to look beyond what you had and begin trusting in what you could not yet see. You were being trained, even when it felt like you were barely surviving. You were being strengthened, even when you felt exhausted. You were being elevated internally, even when your external reality seemed stuck. And that is why it felt so intense. Because transformation is never comfortable. Growth is never easy. And becoming someone capable of carrying overflow requires a level of stretching that most people would run from. But you did. You stayed. You endured. You adapted. Even when you didn't realize it, you were learning how to manage with less so you would never misuse more. You were learning patience so you wouldn't sabotage sudden opportunities. You were learning resilience so that when increase comes, you won't crumble under pressure. Every moment of lack was teaching you something abundance alone could never teach. Every delay was protecting you from stepping into something too early. Every closed door was redirecting you away from paths that could not carry your future. And now, looking back, you may begin to see it differently. The season that once felt like it was breaking you was actually building you. The weight you carried was not meant to crush you, but to strengthen your capacity. The silence you experienced was not absence but instruction. Heaven was working in ways you could not measure, preparing outcomes you could not yet understand. Because what is coming next requires a different version of you. Not the one who reacts out of fear. Not the one who doubts at the first sign of delay. Not the one who chases every opportunity without discernment. But the one who has been refined by pressure. The one who has learned to stand even when nothing made sense. The one who has developed a quiet strength, a deeper awareness, and an unshakable trust that goes beyond circumstances. This is why the pressure had to last as long as it did. A moment too low, a moment too sure. Exactly long enough to shape you, but not long enough to break you completely. Exactly long enough to prepare you, but not long enough to make you lose your purpose. And now, that season has reached its end. The weight you carried is lifting. The resistance you felt is weakening. The cycle that kept repeating is breaking. Because the lesson has been learned. The preparation is complete. The refinement has done its work. You are no longer in the same position you were before, even if it looks similar on the surface. Something inside you has shifted. Something within you has matured. Something in your spirit has aligned with what is about to be released. And this is where everything begins to change. Because once preparation is complete, release follows. Once refinement is finished, reward begins. Once the test is passed, overflow is activated. So do not look back at that season with frustration anymore. Do not label it as loss. Do not carry resentment for what you went through. Because that very season is the reason you are ready now. That very pressure is the reason you can sustain what is coming. That very struggle is the reason your next level will not slip through your hands. You were never being punished. You were being prepared for something greater than you imagined. And now you are ready to receive it. Type "I was prepared for this" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2727 is now activated. There is something you need to understand now that will shift the way you see everything you've been through, because nothing you gave, nothing you endure, and nothing you released in faith has been forgotten. Not one moment, not one sacrifice, not one silent prayer whispered in exhaustion. Heaven did not overlook it. Heaven recorded it. While you were living day by day, trying to hold things together, trying to make ends meet, trying to stay hopeful when everything felt uncertain, there was a divine record being written. Every time you chose responsibility over comfort, it was recorded. Every time you gave when it would have been easier to hold back, it was recorded. Every time you said, "I will trust anyway," even when your situation said otherwise, it was recorded. You may have felt invisible in those moments. You may have wondered if it even mattered. You may have questioned if your effort was making any difference at all. Because from your perspective, it seemed like nothing was changing. The same bills returned. The same pressures remained. The same limitations repeated themselves. And yet, beneath all of that, something far greater was taking place. Something you could not measure with numbers or timelines. Heaven was building a case for your overflow. Every sacrifice became a seed. Every delay became a deposit. Every act of faith became a trigger for what is now being released into your life. You were not just surviving that season. You were sowing into the next one. And the truth is, you were sowing far more than you realized. Because you didn't just give financially. You gave emotionally. You gave mentally. You gave spiritually. You gave your energy, your patience, your strength, even when you felt like you had nothing left to give. And here is where the shift begins to make sense. Nothing you gave was wasted. It was multiplied. But multiplication does not always look immediate. It does not always return in the same form. It does not always follow the timeline you expect. Sometimes it goes into a place you cannot see yet, a place where it grows, where it expands, where it prepares itself to return in a way that exceeds what you originally released. That is what has been happening for you. While you were counting what you lost, Heaven was counting what you planted. While you were focused on what left your hands, Heaven was focused on what was being prepared to come back into your life. And now, that preparation is complete. The seeds have reached maturity. The record has been sealed. The moment of return has arrived. This is why June 25th carries such weight. Because it is not just the end of a test. It is the release of everything that test produced. What you are about to experience is not random provision. It is not luck. It is not coincidence. It is the direct result of what has already been recorded in your life. The things you thought were small were not small. The things you thought went unnoticed were not unnoticed. The things you thought didn't matter mattered more than you knew. And now, you are stepping into a moment where those unseen deposits begin to surface. You may start to notice it in subtle ways at first. Opportunities that align too perfectly to ignore. Conversations that open doors you didn't expect. Resources that arrive without the struggle you are used to. Ideas that come with clarity and direction. These are not accidents. These are returns. And as they begin to appear, something inside you will recognize it. Not because you fully understand it, but because your spirit remembers what you gave to reach this point. Your spirit knows the cost. Your spirit knows the weight of what you carried. And your spirit will also recognize that what is coming now is different. It is not forced. It is not fragile. It is not temporary. It is overflow. But here is what you must remain aware of in this moment. Do not dismiss what comes as just luck. Do not minimize it as just timing. Do not talk yourself out of receiving it fully, because what is being released to you now is intentional. It has your name on it. It has your history attached to it. It has your sacrifices written into it. You are not stepping into someone else's blessing. You are stepping into the return of your own faithfulness. And that changes everything. Because when you understand that what is coming is connected to what you've already given, you stop doubting whether you deserve it. You stop questioning whether it will last. You stop fearing that it will disappear as quickly as it came. Instead, you begin to receive it with confidence, with clarity, and with a deeper level of gratitude. This is the moment where the unseen becomes visible. This is the moment where what was recorded is now released. This is the moment where your past sacrifices begin to speak on your behalf. And nothing can stop what has already been set in motion. Type "My seeds are returning" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 3030 is now activated. As this revelation settles into your spirit, understand this: every word you hear, every light that reaches your heart through this message, is part of a greater mission to awaken souls who are still walking in silence. When you choose to support through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a channel. You are sowing into a harvest of transformed lives. The word says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And this is not distant scripture. It is a living promise speaking directly over your life right now. I feel led to say this clearly. I am stepping into this moment not just as a listener, but as a vessel of impact. Your seed becomes light in someone else's darkness, a voice in someone else's confusion, a breakthrough in someone else's waiting. Do not hesitate when your spirit is stirred. This is your moment to act in alignment with what God is doing through you. As you give, may your own overflow multiply, may doors open without resistance, and may favor follow you in ways you cannot explain. Step forward now and release your seed. There is a layer to your financial struggle that you could not fully explain, no matter how much you tried to make sense of it logically. It went beyond budgeting or beyond effort, beyond timing, because deep down, you knew something wasn't adding up. You knew you were doing more than enough to move forward, yet something kept resisting your progress in ways that felt almost invisible. And now, the truth is being revealed to you in this moment. What you were facing was not only natural, it was spiritual. There has been a battle surrounding your finances. Not just a temporary challenge, not just a random series of unfortunate events, but a sustained resistance that was trying to wear you down over time. It showed up in delays that made no sense. It showed up in opportunities that looked promising but collapsed at the last moment. It showed up in unexpected expenses that seemed to appear just when you were about to gain momentum. It showed up in cycles, patterns that repeated themselves just enough to keep you from breaking through. And the most frustrating part was this: you couldn't fully prove it, but you could feel it. You could feel that something was off. You could feel that your effort was not the problem. You could feel that your intentions were not the issue. You could feel that there was more happening behind the scenes than what your eyes could see. And that feeling was not confusion. It was awareness. It was your spirit recognizing that this was not just about money. This was about access, about movement, about whether you would step into the level that has been prepared for you. Because understand this clearly, when something significant is assigned to your life, resistance will always attempt to meet it. Not to destroy you, but to delay you. Not to remove your future, but to test your position. Not to stop your blessing completely, but to see if you will release it before it arrives. And for a season, that resistance was allowed. It was allowed to stretch you. It was allowed to challenge you. It was allowed to expose areas where fear could still take over, where doubt can still creep in, where pressure can still shake your focus. But it was never given permission to remain permanently. They had a limit. They had an expiration point. And now, you have reached it. The battle is ending. Not because you fought harder, not because you figured everything out perfectly, but because the assignment attached to that resistance hath been completed. It no longer has a reason to remain in your life. It no longer has authority over your path. It no longer has permission to interfere with what is about to be released. This is the shift you are stepping into now. The same situations that once felt blocked will begin to move. The same areas that felt restricted will begin to open. The same efforts that once felt like they led nowhere will begin to produce results. And it will not feel forced. It will not feel like you are pushing against something anymore. It will feel like alignment. It will feel like flow. It will feel like something has finally stepped out of the way. Because something has. What was resisting you has been removed. And as this removal takes place, you will begin to notice a difference, not just externally, but internally. The pressure that once sat heavily on your thoughts will begin to lift. The constant overthinking will begin to quiet down. The urgency that once felt overwhelming will begin to settle into clarity. You will move differently because you will no longer be carrying what was never meant to stay with you. But here is where your awareness matters the most. Do not return to the mindset that was formed under pressure. Do not continue thinking as if everything will collapse at any moment. Do not operate from fear when the resistance has already been broken. Because if your mindset stays in the old pattern, it will limit your ability to fully step into what is now available to you. You are no longer in that same battle. You are stepping into release. And with that release comes a different responsibility. Not the responsibility to fight, but the responsibility to receive. Not the responsibility to survive, but the responsibility to move with clarity, with intention, and with confidence in what is unfolding. This is the moment where you stop bracing for impact and start preparing for increase. This is the moment where you stop expecting resistance and start recognizing opportunity. This is the moment where you stop questioning whether things will work out and start aligning with the fact that they already are. Because the battle over your finances has reached its end. And what follows next is not struggle. It is movement. It is access. It is overflow in motion. Type "the battle is over" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 4141 is now activated. There was a moment, maybe more than one, where you felt like you had reached your limit. A point where the pressure didn't just feel heavy, it felt unbearable. A point where your strength didn't feel strong anymore, where your faith didn't feel steady anymore, where even your ability to keep going started to feel uncertain. You remember it clearly, even if you tried to move past it. That moment where you thought, "I don't know how much more of this I can take." And yet you didn't break. You bent. You stretched. You questioned. You felt overwhelmed. But something within you refused to collapse completely. Something within you held on, even when you didn't have a clear reason to. And what you didn't realize in that moment, what you could not see while you were inside of it, is that you were not at your breaking point. You were at your birthing point. Because there is a difference between something ending and something being born. And the confusion between the two is where most people give up. They feel the intensity, they feel the pressure, they feel the discomfort, and they assume it means something is falling apart. But in reality, something is being formed. Something is being put into existence. Something is coming through you that could not exist without that level of pressure. That is exactly what was happening in your life. The moment you thought you were losing control, you were actually being shifted into a new level of capacity. The moment you thought things were falling apart, they were being rearranged into a structure that could hold more than what you had before. The moment you thought you were being empty, you were actually being made ready to carry something greater. Because overflow cannot be poured into a space that has not been expanded. An expansion does not happen comfortably. It happens through pressure, through stretching, through moments where you are forced to confront limits you didn't even know you had. It happens when everything familiar starts to feel unstable, when everything predictable starts to shift, when everything comfortable starts to fade. Not to harm you, but to prepare you. And that preparation reaches its peak at what feels like a breaking point. But it is not breaking you. It is opening you. Think about it. Every major shift in your life has come through some form of discomfort. Every level you've reached required you to leave something behind. Every growth point required you to become unfamiliar with who you used to be. And this moment was no different, except it was deeper, stronger, more intense, because what it was preparing you for is greater than anything you've carried before. That is why it felt the way it did. That is why it stretched you the way it did. That is why it pushed you to the edge of what you thought you could handle. Because something new was trying to come through. And now, you are on the other side of that moment. You may not even realize it yet, but the intensity that once surrounded you has started to shift. The weight that once felt constant has started to lift. The confusion that once filled your thoughts has started to clear. And in its place, something new is forming. Something steady, something grounded, something aligned with what is coming next. This is the result of that birthing point. You are not the same person you were before it. You think differently. You respond differently. You see things differently. Your tolerance for what once drained you has changed. Your awareness of what matters has sharpened. Your ability to recognize what aligns with you and what doesn't has become clearer. That is not accidental. That is the evidence that something has already been born within you. And what has been born within you is what will sustain what is about to come into your life externally. Because the overflow that is approaching is not just about increase. It is about alignment. It is about matching what is coming with who you have become. It is about ensuring that when it arrives, you are not overwhelmed by it, you are ready for it. This is why the breaking point was necessary. Without it, you would not have expanded. Without it, you would not have developed the awareness you now carry. Without it, you would not have the internal structure required to hold what is coming. So do not look back at that moment as weakness. Do not label it as failure. Do not wish it never happened. Because that moment is the reason you are prepared now. That moment is the reason you are stronger now. That moment is the reason you are able to step into this next phase without collapsing under the weight of it. You didn't break. You gave birth to a new version of yourself. And that version of you is exactly who is required for the overflow that is now being released. Type I wasn't breaking. I was becoming in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 5555 is now activated. There is a shift happening now that you must not overlook, because it does not arrive the way struggle did. It does not come with pressure, confusion, or heaviness. It comes quietly at first, almost subtly, but with a clarity that feels different from anything you have experienced before. Because what is being released to you now is not just provision. It is strategy. For a long time, it felt like you were trying to figure everything out on your own. You analyzed, you planned, you adjusted, you tried different approaches, hoping something would finally click. And even when things worked temporarily, they did not sustain. It felt like you were constantly searching for the right move, the right decision, the right opportunity that would finally shift everything into place. But what you could not see then is what is being revealed now. The answers you were looking for were not meant to come from effort alone. They were meant to come from alignment. Because there is a difference between working hard and moving with divine direction. One drains you, the other guides you. And now, you are stepping into a moment where guidance is being released in a way that removes unnecessary struggle. Not because you will stop working, but because your work will begin to flow with clarity instead of confusion. This is where supernatural strategies begin to enter your life. They may not arrive as something dramatic at first. They may come as a simple idea that feels unusually clear. A thought that repeats itself with consistency. A sudden understanding of something that once felt complicated. A connection that seems ordinary but opens something significant. A decision that feels right without needing to overthink it. This is how it begins. And you must pay attention to it. Because what is being given to you now is precise. It is not random. It is not accidental. It is tailored specifically to your path, your timing, and your capacity. What works for others may not be what works for you, and that is intentional. Because your overflow is not designed to follow someone else's blueprint. It is designed to follow the strategy that is being released to you. This is why the previous season had to strip away so much noise. So that now you can hear clearly. So that now you can recognize what is aligned. So that now you can move without second-guessing every step. Because when strategy is clear, movement becomes efficient. Decisions become easier. Opportunities become more obvious. And progress begins to feel natural instead of forced. You will notice that you are no longer chasing everything. You will begin to choose differently. You will begin to recognize what deserves your time and what does not. You will begin to see where your energy produces results and where it is being wasted. You will begin to sense when something aligns with your direction and when it is simply a distraction. This is not coincidence. This is instruction. And the more you trust it, the stronger it becomes. But here is something you must remain aware of in this moment. Do not ignore the simplicity of what you receive. Because often, the most powerful strategies do not feel complicated. They feel clear. They feel direct. They feel almost too simple compared to what you expected. And that is where many people hesitate. They overthink what was meant to be followed. Do not do that now. If something becomes clear to you, move with it. If an idea stays consistent, explore it. If a direction feels aligned, take the step. Because this is not the time to doubt what is being given to you. This is the time to act on it. And as you begin to move with these strategies, something else will happen. Momentum will return. Not forced momentum, but natural movement. The kind that builds steadily. The kind that feels sustainable. The kind that begins to produce visible results without the constant resistance you once experienced. You will begin to see things connect. You will begin to see effort produce outcomes. You will begin to see doors open where there were once walls. And it will not feel like luck. It will feel like alignment. Because that is exactly what it is. This is the transition from struggle to strategy, from confusion to clarity, from effort without direction to movement with purpose. And this is where your financial shift truly begins. Not just in what you receive, but in how you move. Because once you have the right strategy, what you build becomes stable. What you create becomes sustainable. And what you receive becomes something you can grow, not just something you temporarily hold. This is why this moment matters so much. Because what is being released to you now is not just a solution for today. It is a direction for what comes next. And if you remain aware, if you remain aligned, if you remain willing to act on what is being shown to you, you will not just experience overflow. You will know how to sustain it. Type "I receive divine strategy" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 6666 is now activated. There were doors you knocked on that never opened, and at the time, it didn't make sense. You waited, you hoped, you positioned yourself, you did everything you thought was necessary, and still, nothing moved. Opportunities you were sure would work out suddenly disappeared. Situations that looked promising turned into dead ends. People who seemed aligned with your future slowly became distant or unavailable. And in those moments, it felt personal. It felt like rejection. It felt like something was being taken from you. But now, you are being brought into a deeper understanding of what was really happening. Those doors were not closed to punish you. They were closed to protect you. Because not every opportunity that looks good is designed for your future. Not every open path leads to the place you are meant to reach. And not every connection that feels right in the moment is aligned with who you are becoming. There were things you were ready for emotionally but not aligned with spiritually. There were paths that could have given you temporary relief but long-term limitation. There were doors that could have opened quickly but would have required you to shrink in order to stay. And that could not happen. Because what is being prepared for you now requires expansion, not restriction. It requires growth, not compromise. It requires alignment, not attachment to what simply feels familiar. That is why those doors had to remain closed, even when you were ready to walk through them. That is why certain opportunities slipped away, even when they seemed like the answer you had been waiting for. That is why certain plans fell apart, even when you had already committed your energy and your expectation to them. Because they were not designed to carry what is now coming into your life. If they had opened, they would have redirected you into something smaller than your capacity. If they had worked out, they would have anchored you in a space that could not sustain your next level. If they had succeeded, they would have delayed the alignment that is now taking place. And this is the part that changes how you see everything. You were never being denied. You were being redirected. Every closed door was a correction. Every delay was a realignment. Every no was guiding you away from something that could not hold your future. Even when it didn't feel that way. Even when it looked like loss. Even when it left you questioning what you could have done differently. There was nothing you could have done differently, because those outcomes were not yours to change. They were not meant to work. They were not meant to last. They were not meant to become part of your final path. And now, as you step into this next phase, you will begin to see the difference. The doors that are meant for you will not require you to force them open. They will not demand that you prove your worth constantly. They will not feel like you are fighting to stay inside of them. Instead, they will respond to your presence. They will align with your direction. They will open in a way that feels natural, steady, and sustainable. This is what alignment looks like. It does not exhaust you. It does not confuse you. It does not make you question yourself at every step. It moves with you. And as you begin to encounter these new openings, you may feel a shift in your response. Where you once felt urgency, you will now feel clarity. Where you once felt pressure to accept everything, you will now feel the ability to choose wisely. Where you once feared missing out, you will now recognize what truly belongs to you. Because you are no longer in the same mindset you were in before. You are not chasing doors anymore. You are recognizing them. And that changes everything. Because when you recognize what is meant for you, you stop attaching yourself to what is not. You stop trying to force outcomes that were never designed to work. You stop carrying the weight of disappointment from things that were never supposed to last. Instead, you begin to move forward with a different level of confidence. Not because everything is guaranteed to be easy, but because you now understand that what is meant for you cannot be blocked, delayed beyond its time, or taken from you by something that was never aligned in the first place. This is the shift. This is where frustration turns into clarity. This is where confusion turns into understanding. This is where rejection reveals itself as protection. And as you continue forward, you will no longer look at closed doors the same way. You will see them for what they truly were. Not missed opportunity, but necessary redirections. And now, the doors that are meant for you are beginning to open. Type "what is for me" will open in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7777 is now activated. There are moments in time that carry more weight than others. Moments that are not just part of a timeline, but markers of transformation. June 25th is one of those moments for you. It is not just another day passing by. It is not just another date that will come and go without significance. It is a point of activation, a line of separation between what hath been and what is now beginning to unfold in your life. You may not fully understand it yet, and that is okay. Because shifts like this are not always felt immediately in a dramatic way. They often begin in the unseen, in the spiritual realm where decisions are made before they manifest in the physical. And what is happening now is that something has already been set into motion, something that has your name attached to it, something that hath been prepared over time, something that is now being released at the exact moment you are ready to receive it. June 25th marks the end of a cycle of limitation, a cycle of repeated pressure, a cycle where progress felt slow, inconsistent, or blocked altogether. And as that cycle comes to an end, a new one begins, not gradually, not eventually, but decisively. This is not a slow transition. This is a shift, a realignment, a moment where things begin to move differently, respond differently, and unfold in ways that you are not used to, but have been prepared for. You will begin to notice it in how quickly things start to connect. Situations that once took time to develop will now align faster. Decisions that once felt complicated will now become clear. Paths that once seemed uncertain will now feel direct. This is not because everything suddenly becomes easy, but because resistance hath been removed from your path. What once delayed you no longer has the authority to do so. This is why timing matters so much in this moment. Because what could not happen before can now happen. What was once out of reach is now accessible. What felt distant is now within your grasp. Not because you changed everything overnight, but because the season itself has shifted. And when a season shifts, everything connected to it begins to respond. This is where your awareness becomes critical. Because the shift will not announce itself loudly. It will not force you to notice it. It will begin subtly, through opportunities, through ideas, through moments that seem small at first but carry significant potential. And if you are not paying attention, you might treat them the same way you treated things in the past. You might hesitate. You might delay. You might second guess. But this is not the same season. You are not in the same cycle. And what is being presented to you now is not the same as what came before. This is why you must move differently. You must respond with clarity instead of hesitation. You must act with confidence instead of doubt. You must recognize that what is appearing in your life now is aligned with the shift that has already taken place. Because this is not about waiting anymore. This is about stepping into what has already been released. And as you begin to do that, you will notice something else. Momentum will begin to build. Not forced momentum, not temporary progress, but steady movement that continues to grow. One opportunity will lead to another. One decision will create space for the next. One step will open a door you could not see before. And before you realize it, you will no longer feel stuck. You will no longer feel like you are trying to push against something. You will feel movement. And that movement is the evidence of the shift. This is what June 25th represents for you. It is the moment where things begin to align without resistance. It is the point where preparation meets opportunity. It is the activation of everything that have been building beneath the surface. And once this activation takes place, you cannot return to the previous cycle, because you have already moved beyond it. This is the beginning of your financial realignment. This is where your efforts begin to produce results. This is where your direction becomes clear. This is where your overflow begins to take shape. So do not approach this moment casually. Do not overlook what is happening. Do not assume it is just another day, because it is not. It is the day where your season shifts. It is the day where your path opens. It is the day where everything begins to move in your favor. Type "I step into the shift" in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 8888 is now activated. As you stand in this moment of activation, understand this: your response does not just impact you. It echoes into the lives of others who are still waiting to hear what you have just received. When you release your support through Super Thanks or through the PayPal link in the description, you are not simply giving. You are sowing light into places where darkness has held people back for too long. The word declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days." And this is that moment where your seed becomes a future harvest for souls you may never meet, but heaven fully sees. I feel this strongly. I am stepping into alignment not just for myself, but as a vessel for others to receive clarity and breakthrough. Your giving is not ordinary. It is prophetic. It is timely, and it carries weight in the spiritual realm. As you act now, may your own doors open wider. May your overflow multiply without delay, and may favor meet you in unexpected ways. Step forward and release your seed now. There is something you must prepare your mind for now, because what is coming into your life will not look the way you expected it to look. It will not follow the patterns you are used to. It will not arrive through the same channels that failed you before. And if you are not aware of this, you may overlook it, question it, or even hesitate when it begins to unfold. Because overflow, when it comes after a season like the one you have been through, rarely looks familiar. You have spent so much time expecting things to happen in a certain way. You thought the breakthrough would come through a specific opportunity, a certain person, a particular plan you had in mind. You imagined it unfolding in a way that made sense to you, something you could predict, something you could prepare for based on what you already knew. But what is being released to you now is not limited to what you know. It is not restricted by your past experiences. It is not shaped by what has or has not worked before. And that is why it will feel different. It may come through a connection you did not expect to matter. A conversation that seems ordinary but carries unexpected opportunity. An idea that appears simple but holds powerful results. A shift in direction that you would not have chosen before but suddenly feels aligned. It may even come through something you once overlooked or dismissed because it did not seem significant at the time. This is how unexpected overflow begins. Not as something obvious, but as something that requires recognition. And this is where your awareness becomes essential. Because if you are only looking for what you expected, you might miss what is actually being given to you. If you are only open to what feels familiar, you might reject what is truly aligned. If you are only focused on what you planned, you might overlook what has been prepared for you. You must be willing to see differently now. You must be willing to receive in ways that do not match your previous expectations. Because the reason it feels unusual is because it is new. It is not connected to your past cycle of struggle. It is not tied to the limitations you once experienced. It is coming from a place of alignment that you have just stepped into. And alignment produces results that do not look like struggle. It produces ease where there was once resistance. It produces clarity where there was once confusion. It produces access where there were once obstacles. And sometimes that can feel unfamiliar. You may find yourself questioning it at first. You may wonder if it is too simple. You may hesitate because it does not carry the same level of difficulty you are used to. But understand this clearly, not everything that is valuable has to be difficult. Not everything that is meant for you has to be hard to obtain. Not everything that carries increase has to come through struggle. You have already gone through the season that required that level of effort. You have already paid the cost of preparation. You have already endured the pressure that built your capacity. Now you are stepping into a season where things begin to flow differently. And that flow may feel unfamiliar, but it is correct. This is why you must allow yourself to receive without resistance. Do not complicate what is clear. Do not delay what feels aligned. Do not reject what is unfolding simply because it does not match what you expected. Because what is coming into your life now is not meant to repeat your past. It is meant to replace it. And as this overflow begins to take shape, you will start to recognize a pattern. Things will begin to connect in ways that feel intentional. Opportunities will begin to appear at the right time. Resources will begin to meet your needs without the same level of strain. And you will begin to see that what is happening is not random. It is precise. It is designed. It is aligned with everything that has been building up to this moment. And the more you accept it, the more it will expand. The more you trust it, the more it will grow. The more you move with it, the more it will multiply. This is the nature of overflow. It does not arrive in a way that keeps you stuck in old patterns. It arrives in a way that moves you forward into new ones. And those new patterns will require you to think differently, respond differently, and receive differently than you ever have before. Because this is not the same season. This is not the same cycle. This is not the same level. This is where the unexpected becomes your reality. This is where what you did not see coming becomes exactly what you needed. This is where overflow begins to take form in ways you could not have predicted, but will soon recognize as perfectly aligned. Type "I receive unexpected overflow" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9999 is now activated. Now that you are stepping into this shift, there is something you must understand with absolute clarity, because this is where many people misunderstand what overflow truly means. Overflow is not just about receiving more. It is about being able to sustain, multiply, and manage what is given to you. And that is where stewardship becomes the defining factor in what your next season will look like. Because what is coming into your life now is not temporary provision. It is not something that is meant to appear and disappear. It is not something that comes just to relieve pressure for a moment and then return you to the same cycle. What is being released to you now carries the potential to grow, to expand, and to remain, but only if it is handled with awareness. This is why your preparation season focused so heavily on discipline, patience, and awareness, even when you didn't fully realize it at the time. Because stewardship is not something you learn when overflow arrives. It is something you develop before it comes, so that when it does arrive, you are ready to handle it without losing it. And now, you are entering the moment where that preparation will be tested, not through pressure but through responsibility. You will begin to notice that what comes into your life now requires decisions. Not reactive decisions, not emotional decisions, but intentional ones. You will need to choose how you manage your time, your energy, your finances, and your opportunities. And those choices will determine whether what you receive continues to grow or begins to diminish. Because overflow responds to structure. It expands where there is clarity. It multiplies where there is discipline. It remains where there is awareness. And it fades where there is carelessness. This is why you cannot approach this next season the same way you approached the last one. In the previous season, your focus was survival. You were trying to make things work with what you had. You were responding to pressure, adjusting constantly, doing what was necessary to stay afloat. But this next season requires a different mindset entirely. It requires intention. It requires foresight. It requires the ability to think beyond the present moment and begin positioning yourself for what comes next. Because the moment you begin to receive more, your decisions begin to carry more weight. The way you respond to opportunities becomes more significant. The way you manage what you receive begins to shape your future in a much stronger way than before. And this is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to empower you. Because you are no longer in a place where things are happening to you. You are in a place where your actions begin to shape what continues to happen for you. This is where you move from reacting to leading, from adjusting to directing, from surviving to building. And as you begin to move in this way, you will notice that your awareness increases. You will begin to see patterns more clearly. You will begin to recognize what adds value and what drains it. You will begin to understand where your energy produces results and where it does not. This clarity is part of your stewardship. Because when you see clearly, you make better decisions. And when you make better decisions, what you have begins to grow. But here is something you must remain mindful of. Do not allow old habits to follow you into this new season. Do not carry the mindset of scarcity into a place of abundance. Do not continue to operate from fear when you are now positioned in opportunity. Because if your mindset remains rooted in the past, it will limit what is possible in your present. You must allow your thinking to expand along with your reality. You must allow your habits to evolve along with your opportunities. You must allow yourself to fully step into the responsibility that comes with what is being released to you. Because you are ready for it. You have already been prepared for it. Everything you went through has shaped you into someone who can handle more, who can manage more, who can sustain more than you ever have before. And now, you are being given the opportunity to prove that, not through struggle, but through stewardship. This is where your overflow becomes something greater than just provision. It becomes growth. It becomes stability. It becomes something that continues to expand long after it arrives. And that is the difference between receiving something and building something. You are no longer just receiving. You are building. And what you build in this season will determine how far your overflow can go. Type "I am a good steward" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1010 is now activated. For a long time, your journey required something that many people talk about, but few truly understand: faith without visible proof. You had to believe when there was no confirmation. You had to trust when there was no guarantee. You had to keep moving forward when nothing in your external reality reflected what you were hoping for internally. And that kind of faith is not easy. It stretches you in ways that are invisible to others but deeply felt within you. There were moments when you questioned if it was even working. Moments when you wondered if what you were holding onto would ever become real. Moments when you felt like you were speaking into silence, acting without results, giving without return. And yet, you stayed with it. Not perfectly, not without doubt, but consistently enough that you never fully let go. That is what carried you to this point. But now, something is shifting in a way that you must recognize, because you are no longer being asked to operate from faith alone. You are entering a season of evidence. This means that what you have believed for will begin to take form in ways you can see, measure, and confirm. It means that the things you once held internally will begin to show up externally. It means that what once required imagination and trust will now require observation and response. And this is where many people struggle in a different way. Because when you are used to operating in uncertainty, certainty can feel unfamiliar. When you are used to waiting, receiving can feel unexpected. When you are used to hoping, having can feel almost unreal at first. You may find yourself questioning whether what you are seeing is stable. You may wonder if it will last. You may hesitate to fully embrace it because part of you is still adjusting to the shift. But this is why awareness matters so much in this moment. Because what is beginning to appear in your life now is not temporary. It is not accidental. It is not something that will disappear the moment you acknowledge it. It is evidence. Evidence that what you went through had a purpose. Evidence that what you believed in was not misplaced. Evidence that what has been prepared for you is now unfolding. You will begin to see it in tangible ways. Not just in ideas or possibilities, but in actual results. Movement where there was once stagnation. Progress where there was once delay. Increase where there was once limitation. And it will not feel forced. It will not feel like you are struggling to maintain it. It will feel like something is finally aligning. Because it is. And as this evidence begins to build, your confidence will begin to change. Not based on assumption, not based on hope, but based on what you can now see happening in your life. You will no longer need to convince yourself that things are shifting. You will witness it. This is the transition from believing to knowing. And that transition changes how you move. Because when you know something is working, you move with more clarity. When you know something is aligned, you act with more confidence. When you know something is real, you stop hesitating and start building on it. This is where your next level truly begins. Not in uncertainty, but in confirmation. Not in waiting, but in movement. Not in questioning, but in recognizing. And as you continue forward, the evidence will not just remain, it will expand. What begins as small signs will grow into larger results. What starts as subtle confirmation will become undeniable proof. And what once felt distant will become part of your everyday reality. This is what happens when a season of faith produces a season of evidence. But here is what you must remember as this unfolds. Do not disconnect from the mindset that carried you here. Do not lose your awareness just because things are improving. Do not become passive now that movement has begun. Because the same consistency that sustained you in uncertainty will allow you to maximize what is now becoming visible. You are not leaving faith behind. You are building on it. And what you build now will be supported by both belief and evidence working together. This is the moment where everything begins to make sense. This is the moment where you realize that nothing you went through was wasted. This is the moment where what you once had to imagine becomes something you can finally experience. You are no longer standing in possibility. You are stepping into reality. And that reality is just beginning to unfold. Type I see the evidence in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1111 is now activated. This is the moment everything has been leading to. Not just the end of a difficult season, not just the relief of pressure, not just the closing of a cycle, but the beginning of something entirely new. You are not stepping back into what you once knew. You are not returning to the same patterns with slight improvement. You are crossing into a different level of living, a different level of receiving, a different level of understanding what is available to you. This is your welcome into supernatural abundance. And you must allow yourself to fully accept that. Because for a long time, your reality trained you to expect less. It conditioned you to prepare for struggle, to anticipate delay, to manage limitation instead of expansion. You learned how to survive with what you had, how to adjust when things didn't work, how to keep going even when progress felt slow. And while that season built strength within you, it also shaped expectations that no longer belong in this next phase of your life. You cannot step into abundance while still expecting lack. You cannot receive overflow while still preparing for loss. You cannot move forward fully if part of you is still bracing for things to fall apart. That is why this moment requires a shift, not just externally, but internally. You must allow your thinking to expand. You must allow your expectations to rise. You must allow yourself to believe that what is coming into your life now is not temporary, not fragile, not uncertain, but stable, intentional, and designed to grow. Because supernatural abundance does not operate the way struggle did. It does not come with constant resistance. It does not require you to fight for every result. It does not keep you in a cycle of almost having enough. It moves differently. It responds differently. It expands in ways that reflect alignment, not pressure. And as you step into this, you will begin to notice that your relationship with provision begins to change. You will no longer see it as something distant or difficult to maintain. You will begin to recognize it as something that flows, something that builds, something that responds to how you manage and move with it. This is where everything comes together. The preparation you went through, the discipline you developed, the awareness you gained, the strength you built. All of it was leading to this moment, not just so you could receive more, but so you could live differently, so you could think differently, so you could operate from a place of clarity instead of confusion. And as this becomes your new reality, you will begin to see that what once felt impossible is now normal. What once felt out of reach is now accessible. What once felt uncertain is now something you can rely on. This is what happens when you step into alignment with what has already been prepared for you. You stop chasing. You start receiving. You stop forcing. You start flowing. You stop questioning whether it will work. You start building on what already is. And this is where your journey truly shifts. Because this is not just about one moment. This is about a new standard. A new way of living where you no longer operate from limitation, but from expansion. Where you no longer react to circumstances, but move with direction. Where you no longer hope things will work out, but recognize that they already are. This is your welcome, not into something temporary, but into something that has the ability to grow with you, to expand through you, and to remain as long as you continue to move in alignment with it. You have crossed the line. You have completed the test. You have stepped into the release. And now, everything begins to respond to you differently. This is your season. This is your moment. This is your overflow. Type "I walk in abundance" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1212 is now activated. As this message comes to completion, understand this truth deeply. What has just been released into your spirit is not meant to stop with you. There are others still waiting in silence, still struggling in confusion, still searching for the same clarity that just reached you. When you choose to give through Super Thanks or through the PayPal link in the description and QR code on the screen, you are not supporting a channel. You are activating a stream of light that reaches those souls right on time. The word declares, "Whoever sows generously will also reap generously." And this is not just scripture. It is a living exchange unfolding through you right now. I feel this clearly. I am stepping into this moment as a vessel, and my seed will carry this message further than I ever could alone. Your giving becomes a river, flowing into lives that need breakthrough, direction, and restoration. As you act now, may your own abundance multiply without delay. May your path remain open, and may favor surround every step you take. Step forward now and release your seed.